It's time for Talkward, Cringeworthy Tales. And now, your host, weekly humorist, editor-in-chief, Marty Dundix.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talkward. I'm Marty Dundix, editor-in-chief of Weekly Humorist magazine, and this is Talkward, a fun little podcast where professionally funny people come to tell awkward and cringeworthy stories. I'm very excited about today's guest because I've known him as a comedy writer for a long time. He is very big on all of the humor sites, on the McSweeney's, on the Points and Cases, on the Weekly Humorist. I think maybe you were also writing when I was running the National Lampoon's website too. But it's exciting to get to have Gary Almeter on Talkward today because he's promoting a new book that just came out this week, and it's so funny and awesome, and it's called The Official Dream Dinner Party Handbook. So welcome to the big show. Gary, I'm so happy to have you on Talkward today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Marty, and thank you for your enthusiasm. It is an honor to be here. And you say the book just came out, and I know that means that in remotely in time. Yes, it's been out for 72 hours, but it didn't just come out. You shepherded it through, and you
this book took forever to come out.
Yeah.
More like it.
But you shepherded it through nonetheless. Yes.
This book had some. I mean, a lot has happened in the world since this book was an idea of yours. And Andy Newton, who's the editor of Humorous Books, was working with me on it, and you sent it in. I think, was it 2018?
I think it was 2004.
I think it was 2004.
Yeah, because you were
in the early aughts.
Yeah, you were in fifth grade, and you were in homeroom, and it's been a while.
I appreciate that you think I'm that young, and that's wonderful.
Yeah. Since then, Betty White has died. I mean, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
We had to change large swaths of the book because of people passing away, and they had to move to different sections, and the book. Deals with a lot of. So the book. Tell me about the book. Tell me why you came up with this. You've written other books, and you've written things that maybe are less silly than this. And so where did this idea come from? The Official Dream Dinner Party Handbook, which takes the idea of if you could invite anyone living or dead to dinner, and you can pick 3 people, who would it be and why? Which is like a college essay question.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a ubiquitous question. It's a definitely a college essay question. It's a icebreaker party game question. It's often you see it at the back of like Vanity Fair. It's a every Sunday in the New York Times Book Review. They ask an author what 3 writers, living or dead, would you like to have dinner with. But yeah, it's just so. You probably remember the Preppy Handbook, Marty?
I do.
I have a copy of it right here.
The Preppy Handbook, yes, sir.
I mean, remember how that was so, like, it was an official handbook, but it was so tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I like that. And so the question of who would you have dinner with, I'm going to put this back on my bookshelf.
Yeah, we don't want there to be any disorder to the situation behind you.
Yeah.
Because it looks very... set.
And the Preppy Handbook is on the Madras. Madras? Do you say Madras or Madras? It's on the Madras shelf.
Tomato, potato, Yeah.
It's just, it's such an interesting thing because obviously the answer to that question depends on who your audience is. And, so it's just I just thought it was fun.
Well, it was fun because when you pitched the idea, it was, okay, this is a basic thing that lots of people do. They talk about who would they have to dinner and why. And then the more we talked about it, it was like, but what if those people actually had dinner? And what bad things would happen? Because these people, maybe these people in a vacuum by themselves are interesting. But you put them in with other interesting people, and then you get, a shit show. Or it gets to be a disaster, or, the real life questions, which is what your book has a lot of the funny parts of, like, well, where would you have this? What kind of food would you serve? Like all the logistical nightmare of having a dinner party just with your own friends or family. which can be stressful. And now all of a sudden you're planning this thing with like this super high stakes situation of people. And then how's that going to go? So that's why this book is so amusing to me, just because you get so into the details of just like incredibly mundane things that you get into. I feel like going to dinner with you, Gary, is going to be very you're going to be really on the tight details of things. Like, I think things get more complicated than just sparkling or flat water.
Well, thank you, Marty. That's very high praise. And you know what? My son just said, my son went to, he's 18, and he just went to dinner with friends of his at a place with milkshakes. And I said, oh, did everyone get milkshakes? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what kind did you get? And he said, the Rice Krispies milkshake. And he always gets that. And I said, oh, well, what kind did Ross get? And he goes, I don't know. I'm like, you don't remember what kind of milkshake your friend got? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, what kind did Joe get? He's like, I don't remember. I'm like, how do you not remember what kind of milkshake your friends got? Like, it drove me bonkers. But yeah.
What would I always get? The best milkshakes, because I grew up outside of Annapolis in Maryland. And when we would go to downtown Annapolis, right on the seaport area, right by the Naval Academy, there's a main street, and there's a very famous place called Chicken Ruth's Deli. And Chicken Ruth's Deli had been there forever and ever and ever. And then there was a guy named Uncle Teddy that was the uncle of the family, and he sold these pretzels. And they sell them at the base. They sell them at the Baltimore Orioles at the Camden Yards, which is one of you're a hometown Baltimore guy.
Yes.
So I would always get the cookies and cream milkshake.
Okay.
They had these huge, thick milkshakes there, and then they let you hold on to the, that metal cup that because it all won't fit in the glass, and they'll let you, and they keep the cup next to you so that you get the glass filled, and then you get the rest with a spoon, which I always thought was nice, because I always hated it when they made this whole milkshake for you, and then you only get this much milkshake, and then someone else gets the rest of my milkshake. I get the whole milkshake.
Yes.
And I do always remember what other people would get, because I'd be slightly jealous.
Absolutely.
I'd be like, maybe I wanted that.
Yeah.
Maybe I can try some of that. That's kind of, I feel like you might be that. I also wanted to try that milkshake. Or the entrees. It's hard to choose which entree. Well, maybe if you choose that entree and I choose this entree, I can have some of your entree.
Yes.
Is that going to happen? If when
there
we have dinner, are you going to ask to eat half of my entree?
It depends what you get, Marty.
Okay.
Yeah. If it's slathered in mustard or mayonnaise or, whatever, then no. But
I will remember that, to not get whatever I'm getting. The salmon not slathered in mayonnaise.
Please.
So when you went through all of these, because do you have have you always had like kind of a thing about pop culture, celebrities, history?
Yeah, I think so. And then what's interesting is, we think we know so much about these people, and you touched on this, but what would eating with them be like? Like, how would Abraham Lincoln navigate pizza, and then, Mother Teresa, who is still a ubiquitous answer, would she just glare at you if you ordered dessert? And, and then what's it like to, there's a few, like before the internet, it seemed like there was like 5 or 6 famous people, like Michael Jackson, Princess Diana, JFK Jr., and we knew everything about them, but at the same time, we knew nothing about them. So what would, eating dinner with them be like? Like, what could you tell from them by the way they held their flatware, by the way they sipped, by what they ordered or by what they ate,
Yeah.
So, and also just, you'd be able to talk with them. So I
think, well, and you're a big Kennedy fan, right? So
yes,
there's there's some Kennedy talk in this. And are you a royal family fan too?
I don't. Fan isn't. I mean, I think just. I don't think a fan, but there's an inherent interest. Just
you follow it. You follow it like the soap opera that it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's also a chicken and the egg thing. Like, do I follow it because it's always there, or do I follow it because, it's interesting? I don't know.
It's interesting. I mean, so just the overall phenomenon of celebrity I find very interesting and strange, especially in the internet world, because people are famous now for no reason, but also like no reason that makes them money really. Like people are famous because of something on Instagram, or maybe we're on a reality show and they did something crazy. But that doesn't really translate these people into like a good salaried job where they're fine. Like we have so many famous people right now that they're famous, but they're not rich. Like it used to be I think for, at least in the historical context, you were famous because you had money, or you were famous because you had some sort of industry that created wealth for you. And so you were famous, but you were also like really well off. And now we have this kind of mix of people that are famous, but they're not well off, or they're not rich. So that they're also kind of desperate. So it's a different kind of fame, and there's too many famous people. Like I don't know if we can support this many famous people as a society, as a civilization. Yes. We can't have this many famous people. It's not allowed. Right. We've splintered too much.
Yes, there needs to be a forest fire in the fame ecosystem. Just to get rid of all the underbrush.
Well, there could have been. I mean, this book could have been like twice as thick if you just started talking about like internet celebrities.
Yes.
And you're just kind of like, who are these people? Like, why would I want them to come to dinner? And
but see, we know everything about them.
Yeah.
Like, my daughter watches like makeup videos on YouTube, and it's just, and then you look, and it's like hundreds of millions of views, and it's like that's bonkers.
It's a lot of people viewing that makeup video.
Yeah.
Is that makeup person? Do they get to go in this book? I don't know.
I don't know either, Marty. They're not. They're. As the author, I can say they're not in there, but should they be in there? I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Is there going to be like different additions to this book where you're going to remove people who are no longer wanted at dinner, and then you're going to add new people who have become celebrities in the time since this book was first published? Interesting.
Yeah.
It could be a rolling
That's a good
thing.
question.
It's like a new edition of a dictionary. Have we added some new words? I don't know. Interesting question. So, and now you have a podcast that's a companion piece to this book, which explores the idea more. So that's the official Dream Dinner Party podcast.
Yes.
And that talks about the same question, but you're asking a comedy writer type person that question to see who they would have to their dinner party. And Are you having fun exploring the way other people think?
Oh my gosh, Marty. It's well, first, my host Ross Bolin and I were, and he's a comedy writer, we're talking about, the format for this. And our conversations were, do you think we could get 30 minutes out of this? And oh gosh, I don't know. Like maybe if there's enough like opening chatter, we could get 30 minutes. But I mean, we usually look at our timer and it's usually like way past 60 minutes, just because there's so much to talk about, and people are eager to talk about like, oh, this is who I would choose and this is why, and this is what we would do. But also, and you mentioned this before, but people have very strong opinions about the details, like Devorah Blacker was, I just offhandedly said, oh, so you host the dinner? And she was appalled. And she said, well, of course I host the dinner. It's my dinner party. And I make all the food and I'm running back and forth and it was just a foregone conclusion, when answering this question, that she would be hosting. And that was part of her analysis. Could these people occupy themselves while she's in the kitchen, you know, torching the creme brulee or whatever it is, you know, that you'd
That's
be doing.
interesting, because if you are hosting an actual dinner party, you spend considerably less time with your guests.
Yes,
than
absolutely.
they spend with themselves. Like, you're at maybe 25% when they're at 100%, because
Yes.
you're in that kitchen so much, and then you're taking something out, and then the second you take something out, you're running back in the kitchen, you're checking on something, you're clearing stuff, you're making sure everyone is like having a good time, but you're not really paying attention. You're just like, I'll see you later, and then you leave. So I wouldn't want to lose that much time. Like, I would be more, like, I wouldn't mind cooking and all that kind of stuff, but I would have it all ready to go, and just and have it kind of like maybe under foil or something, or in a warmer. You know, I think I have enough I think I have enough dishware to do that.
Yeah.
But again, that's me. Immediately I'm thinking about it happening in my house right now. But when I was a guest on your podcast, we did explore, and I was like, oh, I don't have, and then I ended up having it at some Clue-like mansion where I had a staff. You know, if that's a possibility, it's like, yeah, great. I'm going to have this like team of waiters that are just running around doing all my work, and I can have a chef from some made-up restaurant that I'll just create.
Yeah.
You know, you could really go down the imaginary tube of anything goes, and then once you start unraveling that anything, your mind starts to really wander. So that's why your podcast guests stay on so long, because the concept of anything, it starts small, and then when anything it just snowballs, and you're all of a sudden you're like, oh, anything? And then it becomes this insane dinner party evening of, you know.
Well, there's a whole chapter in the book on foil, you know, so I think it's chapter 7 or 8. So, you know, listeners, you're definitely going to want to include, you know, delve into that. As Marty just said, he would keep his dinner under foil.
I would.
But also, I mean, anytime there's a musical guest, you know, the question becomes, would you play their music? And I think the answer to that is kind of, well,
somewhat.
No, that would be weird. But then what else?
Their music, like if you had Beyonce, would she have to play Beyonce music, or you mean playing in the background, like on Spotify?
Right. Yeah.
I thought more like.
But then, like, all right, you don't play Beyonce, so well, what do you play? You know, and then do you play a playlist? Because then what happens if? I mean, who does Beyonce have beef with? Does she have beef with anybody? Seems like there's always beef. Marty?
I mean, everybody has beef with Kanye, so you could just say Kanye, and everybody's like, you know. So I think the best way to say music with all of these international time traveling people, harpsichord music. Never go wrong with old school harpsichord music. It's like, what is this? I don't know. It's fine, I guess. And you feel like it might be in the 1200s. It could be in the 1600s. It could be some guy playing it on Spotify. It always works.
Yeah.
Harpsichord. Or like a harp. Any string instruments, that works. Because they've been playing those forever.
I agree. You know? Yeah.
So now we're set. Now we know. So when we're having all the people from different times, as long as we have someone playing like a violin, I think everyone's going to be relaxed. If you're playing something like death metal, it's really going to upset people.
Especially like those like Thomas Jefferson and
they're going to be a little bit. They're going to be a little bit on edge.
Yeah.
You get someone like a Ben Franklin, and you start playing something crazy. They're going to be like a little bit, but they're going to be so high on whatever dope they're on. They're not going to feel a thing anyway. You know? Yeah. That's the interesting thing about when you read about all the things in the book and all the people and all when you think about the time frame of these people, like so many of them were on opium. Like all the time. Or they were drunk all the time. Or they were doing something they were all on stuff all the time, but it wasn't like an illicit drug. It was just like what everyone did all the time. Like present time people, we are the most sober, boring versions of humans in all of time compared to how things used to be. Maybe cavemen didn't do drugs, but they probably did. Like I think they probably did. They were eating some stuff. You know, they found this patch of something that was like, hey, Ugg, if you eat out of this pile, shit gets real good. Everyone, Ugg says cool. And then, you know, that's how they invented sex.
And then, you know, 1 out of 50, like 49 times out of 50, Ugg would eat something and immediately just die. But then 1 time out of 50, it would have an intoxicating effect.
Exactly.
Like, yes.
There's a great cartoon. I think it's by Vaughn Tomlinson. And I ran into Weekly Humorist, and he's a very funny cartoonist. And it was like early taste testing. And it was one caveman in and another caveman, and you just saw him, and you just saw he was dead. And he had like a line that was like, there was 2 sections, eat and don't eat. And he like had a line saying don't eat, and the guy was dead. And that's how they figured it out, you know? Like it took a lot of trial and error to figure out the stuff that we can and don't eat.
Right.
I did this cover, which was a lot of fun to put together for the book.
It's spectacular, Marty.
It was tough to pick who to put at the table, you know, because there's so many people. There's so many people in this book, and there's so many people in all of time that are interesting and deserve to be, you know, mentioned and stuff. So I tried to have a good variety, and the people that I didn't put on, but I had people like made to put on. Like I had all these different celebrities and history people. I really wanted to get Mark Twain on here. Maybe we can do him in an insert. I really wanted to put Einstein on here because he has really cool hair.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had some early like cavemen types with like a bone, and they were just like sitting there, and they looked really out of place. But they could have fit in there too. But I do like the way that this is actually, I don't know if people know, I should have put like a guide, but this is Chopin.
Oh.
Yeah. And this is Annie Oakley.
Yes.
And this was just like random medieval knight who just is sitting there at dinner looking kind of like annoyed. He's like, I'm very uncomfortable in this suit.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up an interesting question. Like, say you wanted to know, say your passion is medieval times, you know, and you wanted to know what was it like to be a serf or a knight or whatever it was, like some sort of feudal whatever. Like, how do you, I mean, is it possible to just say, all right, I want a caveman here, you know, like without specifically identifying somebody, like, hey, can I have a knight?
Yeah.
You know, like who knows the name of a knight? Although I guess if that were your passion,
right,
you know, you'd know the names of the knights.
But you can really get it could be a crapshoot because, you know, this one could be a jerk.
Yeah.
This one could, you know.
Yeah,
so
I got a shitty knight, or a shitty caveman.
You get a shitty caveman who's he's hitting everybody over the head with that bone or whatever. Other one, very nice. So that one's kind of a crapshoot because you don't have a specific person that you're aiming for. That one's more of like a blanketed statement of a type of human from this time frame, which is also very fascinating. Like, if you don't need a specific person in your dinner party, you want a representative of a time or place.
Yes.
Because that actually could be a person. Say, you could say, I want Abraham Lincoln, or I want
someone
Amelia
who
Earhart, but I also want someone I want this person from this time who did this. Yeah. I don't know them specifically, but I want someone who could tell me the story of Easter Island, or I want to hear about Stonehenge. Who set up Stonehenge? I want them sitting here having dessert with me.
Yes.
So that's kind of a fun thing.
Yeah. As is. I mean, say your life's calling is you know, you mention did you mention Stonehenge or Easter Island? I always get them confused.
Both.
Oh, okay.
I crammed both of them into that statement. I got a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's a potent statement, Marty. All right, so say you want to know, like, who really killed, like, let's just put this to rest, like the JFK thing. Let's just, you know, or DB Cooper. Who is DB Cooper? Or, you know, Al Capone, whatever. Like any of those great, you know, fundamental mysteries. Like, can you say, I want to have dinner with the guy who says he's DB Cooper, or and then does that person appear, or but then you also sort of you kind of waste a guest on the mystery, and then it's like, oh, well, that's done. So,
well, I think you have to have a motivation for, like, okay, if I have this opportunity and I can get 3 people to sit with me at dinner, do I want answers? Like, am I someone who's just, like, riddled with questions and I need answers to these questions? Like, am I a conspiracy person? Do I really, really need to know this answer? Or do I more just want to have a meaningful time shared with Charlie Chaplin and Amelia Earhart and Catherine the Great? I just want to hang out with these people. We're going to get, full of cupcakes, and we're going to watch a movie together, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on what your motivation is.
Right. Well said.
I could see you being more, I want answers. Are you an answer? You want to know who shot JFK? You want to know who set up Area 51?
Yeah. I don't think so, Marty.
No?
Although to the extent, like, hey, what was this person like? I think that's to the extent that's an answer, then yes. But as far as, I think, no, mysteries are part of the fun,
Okay.
It's, yeah.
But what would you want to know? Like, what's the one thing? Is it the JFK thing that you would want to know from a guest, or is it something bigger?
If I had to know something, gosh, that's a good question. I think probably the JFK thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But just so we're clear, JFK is not on my list because, and this is, you kind of touched on this. I wonder if he might be, gosh, Mark, I don't even want to say it, but I kind of wonder if JFK might not be that nice of a guy.
Oh, and this is from someone who's like a Kennedy aficionado.
Yeah.
That's the problem with any of these famous people is we always want them to be nice.
Yes.
Everybody who's famous or beautiful, we look at them and we put them on a pedestal, and we have this pretend thing where we want them to be this perfect human because they are on a pedestal. And then the internet has taught us, because of social media being so accessible, is that they are just as mean as the rest of us. And I think that should be allowed. I think that celebrities are jerks. And I think that needs to be normalized, that famous people are mean and they are jerks and they steal and they're bad. And I think that we just don't want to know about people's personal lives anymore. Back in the day, like the heyday of Hollywood, the only thing that you would know about these movie stars is what was released through their PR people, right? It was all so orchestrated. And they were like, their entire career and personality was managed by the studio system. The studio system, put out the newsreel footage of them at a red carpet and had them about the town with so-and-so and so-and-so are out there having a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it was
holding their
lies.
babies or swimming with their babies.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was just completely manufactured because it was like the People magazine for the 1940s and 50s and 60s. And then all of those walls came down, and now we just see this like terror, like everyone's just miserable and sad, just like the rest of us. And I kind of want to go back. I don't want to know all this stuff anymore. I would much rather be slightly lied to and have a pretend. Because you don't want to. Because you don't want to know. Because you don't want to have them to dinner anymore, right? Like this person, I'm like, I don't want to have them to dinner. They seem like a jerk. I saw them, punch that guy on TMZ.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't want to hang out with them for a whole evening. I'd rather the mystery of this person from the 1500s. Though there was a lot of area of time where there's a lot of people you probably don't want to have dinner with, like there's a lot of dark ages.
Yeah.
And they're all like living in the dark and everyone's diseased and and it just seems really depressing. You're just like, I don't really want that person. They're really going to be a bummer of a dinner guest, right? Like,
Right.
talk about bringing the room down. It's like, okay, enough with the plague and cholera and whatever the hell. It's like, chill, okay? We're trying to enjoy our croissants.
Right. Or like, what's that? And it's a plate, asshole. You know, like just like, or what's that? You know, or can you imagine them with an iPhone? Like their heads would explode. You know.
Definitely.
So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, my head exploded too.
Yeah.
Like, babies today are the ones who are the best at doing anything on these phones. They're like immediately intuitive at swiping. Though it's really funny to see babies with like a magazine because they think it's an iPad and they're swiping the pages. And
I haven't seen that.
it's just paper. I'll send you a clip. It's hilarious. So you've been a comedy writer for a while. You live in Baltimore. You're professionally, you're a lawyer person, or
Yes.
you've studied law and you were a lawyer. And during all that time of doing lawyery things, is that when you decided I wanted to be a comedy writer also on the side? I want to follow this passion. Like what made you want to start writing comedy? When did that start?
You know, Marty, it was you know, a friend and I were talking about goals, and this was probably like 2013, 2012. And you know, my goals were like, oh, you know, save for the kids' college, become a partner at the firm. And you know, his goals all involved kayaking and passports and, you know, bungee cords. And I was like, oh. And then it kind of occurred to me I needed some new goals. So I said to him, you know, I've always wanted to publish something funny. He's like, we'll do it. And then, and you know how this is. It's, you know, you write something down and you're like, oh, this isn't, it's neither funny nor smart nor, you know, it's just, so I'm just going to throw it away. And then, you know, you don't do anything for a month. But then, as you also surely know, and I'm sorry for calling you Shirley, as you also know, the compulsion doesn't really go away ever.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, kept at it, and then published something in McSweeney's, and
Which is like
Marty,
the top, which is the top, you know, like
yeah,
people submit there for years and never get in. And then was that like you only submitted to them for a while, or did it take a while to get in there? How long did it take to get into McSweeney's from your first effort?
like 7 months.
Okay.
You know, lots of rejection, which was a whole other thing. Like you had to learn how to digest. I had to learn how to digest that. And then they said yes, which was like euphoric, you know, the all of like pride, joy, you know, the gamut of positive emotions.
What
And
was
then
the piece? What was the headline of the piece that first got accepted at McSweeney's?
It was about rejected Pat Benatar titles for Love is a Battlefield. and then it ran on Valentine's Day, and Marty, the euphoria, the feeling upon publication was indescribable, and you know what that's like. And you know, it wasn't something I was prepared for, but I loved it. Loved the accolades, loved the attention, loved the, you know, just the
You feel special because you made something
Yeah.
that people like, and that's an
Exactly.
exciting thing to make
Exactly.
a thing and have recognition, and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, and it makes you feel top of the world. And then you need it again.
Exactly. And then it also feels a little indulgent, like, you know, hey people, you have 24 hours in your day. Spend 4 minutes of those 24 hours reading something from me. And it's, you know, it feels a little like, I'm not writing about, you know, there's nothing, you know, there's no, it was about silly titles for Pat Benatar's Love is a Battlefield.
And people should read that, and they should improve that 4 minutes of their day, because the rest of their day is probably god-awful.
Right.
And they are reading the news, and they are thinking about their bills, and they are avoiding their family.
Yeah, and they're eating strange plants that their friends tell them to eat to see if it's digestible.
So why not have 4 minutes of humor in your day to make that day tolerable?
Yes.
So you're helping people, Gary.
And that's a process. Yeah, that took a while. But thank you, Marty. And yeah.
It's funny that you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm annoying people for 4 minutes. It's so terrible. I'm like, God, Gary, I annoy people a lot more than 4 minutes every day. Like, hours of my day is me being like, hey, you, read this. Hey, you, read this. Hey, you, look at this funny cartoon. Everyone pay attention to me all of the time, including right now on Talkward, streaming live.
Yeah.
It's because I'm the youngest child. You know, I crave attention all the time. And I don't even think about it. Mm-hmm. It's just like the constant setting. So that's nice that you have this completely opposite, humble version of what I do, which is interesting and fun. So how often then would you submit to McSweeney's? After getting in that first time, was it like every week you'd send them something? Or?
It was a perpetual, it was like a perpetual thing, you know, like the, and there were, you know, it's mostly no's. But for that first couple years, there was just, once you get a taste of it, and, you know, it's like, oh, this is funny. And then...
But then you're constantly like, how do I top it? How do I top it? What's the next... Because you have to be so clever to come up with an original idea these days, because it kind of feels like everything's been done. Like, when you really try to think about it, you're like, God, that's been done. Everything's been done. And there's something happening in the news. Everyone made a joke about it already. What's left? You know, like... Yeah. There's so many late night talk shows. There's so many comedy things. There's so many comedy accounts on all of these platforms. So constant content is being made about current events, about everything. So to come up with an idea that's so obscure and absurd to fit into that, I want to submit this and be original. Yeah. It's tough, you know.
Sufficiently familiar, you know, so that, you know, there's a certain cadence and a certain pattern. You know, that these humor websites have, but also you got to be original. Yes, very frustrating, but also, and this, you know, to harken back to, you know, the details about, like, hey, what milkshake did you get? You know, there's so many funny details and that exist throughout your day. The scope of human experience is just replete with humor, and you just kind of have to learn to be open to that and to notice that. And then when that happens, and I'll tell you, you know, one McSweeney's piece called "I'll Ping You" happened just out of the blue. I was in a meeting, and a partner at the law firm, you know, big burly guy, you know, with a deep voice, said, "All right, I'll ping you," and it just hit me as being so funny, you know, because, like, what does "I'll ping you" even mean?
It's like,
and that, yeah. And then the word ping, I mean, it's like onomatopoeia, and it just implies like something dainty or just pestery.
It almost like it's like when you're hitting a triangle.
Yeah. So to hear him say it to like another, like, you know, like businessy kind of guy, I was like, "I'll ping you." All right, ping me. And it's like, all right, that's funny. And so
I will tap you gently on the floor. Right here.
Yeah. Yeah. Boop. So that happened in like 10 minutes, you know? So when something like happens like that, that's a really good feeling. So
then you have an idea and you're like, ooh, because your writer mind, your comedy mind is now like working in tandem with your regular job mind. So something pops out like that and you're like, wait a second. And then you can like write it down, identify this as a funny idea. And then you mull it over during the day, and then at night you sit down and you're like, I'm going to write this idea up. Like, as a comedy writing schedule, do you do it at night after your day is now done and you can focus?
I find like early morning is when I work best.
So you get up early just to do writing time? Do you have like a 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. is your window, or do you do before or after coffee or breakfast?
Like I'll wake up and like write stuff down, and then walk the dogs, do coffee, get the kids ready for school, all that stuff, and then sit at the computer and then flesh stuff out like that.
Dog walking time seems like good thinking time.
Yeah. And when the kids were strollerable, like just walk, having some kind of purpose while also, being able to just think about nothing was, you're right, really, really good thinking time.
I was watching something about, it was an interview with David Sedaris, and he does most of his thinking about his material while he's walking the streets picking up trash. He like cleans trash on streets by where he lives, and he said, and he does it for hours, and that's where he comes up with many of his ideas. It's just like walking around and doing something repetitive, because it lets your mind wander. You can be creative because you're not focusing on something that's like work or distracting. Or I always find like other people, the annoyance of emails and text and things, it breaks up concentration so much that it really hurts if you're working on something and you're really under it, like you're really like underwater in your work, and you're just like being creative, and you're just like kind of swimming around in your, and then like a phone ringing or an email that's urgent or a meeting, it like breaks you free of your concentration, and you have to like take care of that right then. And then it's hard to go back and get back into that focused creative time. It's almost like when you're really creative and you're in the zone, it's almost like you're in like a deep sleep and you're dreaming, and you're just like getting stuff done. Or maybe that's when you're really on a roll with writing and you're just being so funny and all the jokes are just pouring out of you. It's hard to get into that headspace where
absolutely
you're just like being like, I'm being so fucking funny right now.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get into that zone of I'm so funny when there's constant pings and dings and dongs and alerts. It's almost like you have to be in like a lockdown mode to say like this is when I'm being my creative funny time. And do you have that morning time every day that you get to have for being funny or creative?
Not every day. Just, kind of the, like sitting down and saying, all right, I got to think of something doesn't work for me. But, like if something's germinating, like if I think of an idea the day before and it hasn't gone away by the next morning, then yeah, that's when I'll sit and write that down. But a lot of times it's like, oh, here's something funny, like, Michael Bolton, doing this. And it's like, well, that's not funny. But then other times it's like, oh, wait a minute, that idea is not going away. Let's invest the time and all the, the mental.
Yeah, if you have like a little Michael Bolton bug in your ear, you're like, I gotta write something about this. Like there has to be something in there I can turn into a humor piece.
Yeah.
I had asked you if you had any embarrassing Talkward things to talk about on Talkward, which is to get a conversation going, and I had you fill out, this is my new form for like Talkward guest booking, and I remembered to put in the form like, do you have an awkward story? And you had two awkward stories, but one I thought was very interesting. You were a lifeguard?
I worked in an amusement park, and this was a long time ago.
Are you in Baltimore in this time?
No, I'm originally from outside Buffalo, New York.
Oh, okay.
So this was an amusement park called Darien Lake Fun Country, and they had a water ride.
Okay. I think amusement park names are so funny because they're always like, what is this? What can we name this place to? It makes people think this place is going to be so gosh darn fun. We're going to call it Fun Country. That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Get
brilliant.
That.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's real Don Draper kind of stuff right there. And I always used to look in the water. It was one of those things that it was a series of waterfalls. You sat in a tube.
The water parks are so disgusting, Gary.
They're disgusting.
In Maryland, I don't know if they call it this anymore, but we had Wild World. And Wild World, another great name for an amusement park. What's a wild place that people want to go? Wild World? And it was a water park, and I think maybe they called it something else later on. They changed it, but it had like Cal Ripken's Crocodile Mile, because they insert Cal Ripken into everything in Maryland.
Yeah.
They just shoehorn him into whatever they can.
Mm-hmm.
But water parks, so you worked at a water park, which is disgusting, because it's just like everyone's just like sitting in this same water all day in their bathing suits, and everyone's like taking a bath together. And
everyone's taking a bath together. And when it was really hot, and there was always like a queue of like an hour. So when it was really hot, we had to...
And they're standing on hot pavement.
They're standing on hot pavement. They're in bathing suits. So it smells. We had to hose them down, which was just, I mean, everyone just, I mean, by the time you got on the ride, everyone's dignity was just, had eroded to such a level that it was just, but I used to hang out. There were certain spots you could stand that were particularly treacherous for people losing wallets, people losing watches, people losing stuff of some value. And, a couple times I found, valuable stuff. Once, oh, that looks like a wallet. I hop in, pick it up. Marty, remember at the outset of our conversation when you said people are dumb and people are stupid and people are awful and people are mean? And
yeah.
Somebody saw fit to do a bowel movement in the water. So I picked up.
So it wasn't a Baby Ruth?
It wasn't a baby. It was neither a Baby Ruth nor was it a wallet. It was a genuine, real life turd.
It was a turd.
It was a turd. So I picked it up, and you know how, like, I just looked at it for what felt like 8 seconds, and it was probably more like a nanosecond. Then I threw it back into the water.
But it was firm enough that you could pick it up.
Yeah.
So it was like a hard turd. The show is going to be called Turdward. Yeah. Welcome to Turdward.
And I ran faster than Usain Bolt.
So how old are you working in this job, Gary?
I was 17.
17, and you're wearing like a lifeguard outfit?
It was a navy and white striped polo shirt, navy shorts. I did have a whistle, but that was the extent. Yeah.
He's picking up poop at the water park.
Yeah. And sadly,
But did you throw it back in the water?
I threw it back in the water.
Gary, you got to get it out of the water. Someone else had to get it out of the water.
Well, there were protocols in place for when this happens. It happens sufficiently often that someone had to prepare or compose protocols for this. So the ride shut down. Everybody had to leave. And then they found the turd, but then they had to rechlorinate the water or unturd the water or whatever it was. So you gotta do a whole thing. Yeah.
Got to put in there's a lot of all kinds of chlorine stuff you got to do, and you got to check all the pH balances, and it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Got to scrub the whole thing down. So how long did you work at the Turd Factory water park?
I worked at Darien Lake Turd Country for 4 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
You had like a little mini career there.
I did. It was a blast. It was so much fun, and I'm still friends with people, from there.
Did that happen early on or later on in your time there?
That happened the second year I worked there. Yeah.
Okay. So you got some war stories out of that place. I'm sure other things happened that were fun and less disgusting.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Did you get free hot dogs and stuff?
No free hot dogs. The employee cafeteria was actually, you didn't pay full price because, amusement park concession prices are, notoriously high, but you still had to pay for hot dogs. And
I loved going to, and I don't know, because you're in Maryland now, I don't know if you go there, but it was called King's Dominion.
I've heard of it. I've never been there. Yeah.
It is a wonderful place of just magical dreams come true at King's Dominion. And it was like that perfect classic amusement park with the hot pavement smell And some water rides, but mostly the water rides. If they were water, they were like you were in like a log flume, or you were in some sort of a vessel, like a boat, and you got a little bit wet, but you weren't like submerged. But there was like just the roller coasters and all the stuff, and there was like a big replica Eiffel Tower. So anytime we would go with my family, or we went with like a community group in my like neighborhood group, we would take a bus. We would get like a block of tickets, and like a youth group, and we would all go as like a community, and we would have to meet at this time by the Eiffel Tower, because it was all pre cell phones and stuff. So the only way you could coordinate meeting anybody was we're using a time and a place you had to meet at a certain time of day. And just like the hot fried shrimp, jumbo shrimp basket with the fries. Oh, I used to love the amusement parks. It was so much fun. And then by the end of the day, you were so tired and you just wanted to go home. And then there was like a 2-hour ride home, and you're just like, oh my God, this is the worst.
Yeah.
I hate
and on the way there, you're singing like 99 bottles of beer on the wall, and you're all happy.
So
and on
happy.
the way back,
you're
covered in icy juice and popsicle,
and sweat, and just asphalt. Yeah. It was definitely that feeling of that. The hot asphalt is a very specific feel that you don't get that much. You get it in New York City when it's real hot, like when it gets to be like in the hundreds or high 90s in August, and the humidity in New York, but like to have that kind of the amount of asphalt in an amusement park, it's like you're being cooked. Because there's nothing around you that's like dirt. It's all asphalt and just like hot metal and roller coasters, and everyone's always screaming. And you always hear the loop-de-loops, and it's like,
yeah.
It's wonderful.
It is.
So, and then you had another funny story, but it was about was it about a speech? It was a speech about something dirty.
Yeah, this teeters on I don't think it rises to the level of malpractice.
Okay.
But
that's good.
I remember like early on, in the legal world, there's all these like awards, and everyone's always jockeying to be like the daily business journals, top 40 lawyers under 40. And it's just this perpetual sort of, Oscar race to be like the best attorney in Baltimore. So it was like, as part of, the firm's marketing efforts, we would, put people up for this, for these awards.
Yeah.
And one time a partner was, oh, I'm so busy and I have to write this recommendation for we'll call him or her person X.
Okay.
Person X to be, an award. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll do that for you. And so that started the, a sort of mini career writing eulogies and recommendation letters and speeches for people in the firm. And I loved it. Well, I loved it until it just got a little boring. And, so
another eulogy.
Somebody had to give a speech.
Yeah.
And I said, well, let's just spruce this up a little. And so we were going back and forth drafts for the speech, and I wrote the speech and it was good. But then in the final draft, I inserted brackets. And in the brackets I said, insert jerk off motion here.
Okay.
Into the speech. And while he was giving the speech, so later on we have to listen to this bullshit speech, he started to say insert jerk, and then he caught himself. And he was livid.
So did you want him to do the hand motion during the speech?
No, I just thought it would be funny. Wouldn't it be funny if...
Wouldn't it be funny if I totally made an enemy at work?
Well, wouldn't it... I mean, let's just see what happens, And so That was awkward.
Yeah, I bet it was awkward.
Yeah.
Was he a boss of yours?
Yeah.
Gary.
And he didn't say it. But then also I was able to counter with, how do you not read the final draft of a speech? Like, how do you not practice this? And so, I think that's called gaslighting. But I was like, this is your fault, like, so, but yeah.
Well, gaslighting
Marty,
might be, there was no brackets in that speech. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Did you add those yourself? Because I didn't put
Do you have a problem with masturbation?
Did you subconsciously write jerk off motion here? I think it's funny that you wrote insert jerk off motion here in a way that obviously, like, when have you done that before? Like when you're just like making fun of something and you're just like, meh.
Yeah, well, there comes a point in every workplace.
Yeah.
I mean, an eyeball roll, perfectly fine, like.
Yeah. Whatever. Insert eyeball roll here would have been totally fine.
But yeah, that's a little too innocuous for some
Hold
of the...
for applause.
Yeah. But there comes a point in every workplace where, somebody does the jerk off motion and you're like, oh, okay. All right. So we're at that point in our relationship, and that's okay. Yeah. You could talk about a meeting, and do the jerk off motion and yeah.
Well, I'm gonna inadvertently probably do this just in some conversation now, just because it's gonna be top of mind. Where I'm gonna go to like the corner store and there's gonna be someone talking about it. And I'm gonna be like, yeah, I know. All right, I'm gonna like do that, and he'd be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, isn't this something that people do? I was just talking to someone about it, and I thought it was totally fine. Not fine? Okay, I have to leave now. Gary. So I'm assuming
sorry,
you don't work there anymore. I'm guessing.
I don't. No.
Did this happen close to the time of you leaving employment there?
The two aren't unrelated, because I was like, what can I do to just make the day a little more exciting?
It sounds like a thing that would happen to someone who was already checked out from that place.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And there were so many.
You may have started the quiet quitting, Gary. You were quietly quitting when you put that in brackets.
Maybe, yeah.
That's great. So this book is out now. I don't want to take up your entire day. You have other books that are out. People should also get your old books that are also very recent. You have 2 books that are out in addition to the Dream Dinner Party, the official Dream Dinner Party handbook, which is out now. You have 2 other books that are out.
I have 3 other books.
3 other books that are out.
Yes.
And what are those books?
The one's called The Emperor of Ice Cream, and that's like a memoir biography hybrid. And I say it's about it's ostensibly about my paternal grandfather. I grew up on a farm. He lived right next to us. It's about that. But then, I admit towards the end, like, hey, this is all about me. It's probably more of a memoir. And a novel called Kissing the Roadkill Back to Life about what would happen if JFK Jr. had a son.
Okay.
And then a Baltimorean named Rafael Alvarez and I just published, we co-edited something called the Baltimore Anthology. It's called A Friendly Place, A Fighting Place, A Charmer, the Baltimore Anthology. And we asked people from all different walks of life to write a story or an essay about life in Baltimore. And that's published by Belt Publishing. So, yeah.
Hey, I love growing up outside Baltimore. I would go to the Inner Harbor a lot. I'd go to the power plant. I'd go to the aquarium. I'd go to
the aquarium's awesome.
Aquarium's great. The whole Inner Harbor area is great. It's changed a lot, but it's always been this sort of area that has always had like the different shops or the different restaurants or the different weird places and fun stores. There used to be a place in, I think, what is now called Power Plant Live, but there used to be a place that was almost like a museum experiential thing that you would go in, and there were like things to see and do. And I remember I saw a movie, and this place is not there anymore, I don't think. But it was like a 3D movie, but then they also had some they had like smells that came out. And I remember being a kid seeing this 3D movie, which was already wild. And then there was a part of this 3D movie where this woman put this rose right into your face. And they would release this rose, like, gas into the air. And everyone, like, could smell this rose, like, overcome with this smell. And I was like, wow. But, like, as an adult, I'm thinking, like, man, they just, like, blew a bunch of just, like, possibly poisonous gas into this small room of people.
Yeah.
And they were just like, it smells like roses.
It was definitely asbestos. Yeah, it definitely lead paint and asbestos.
Someone's got hives over there. Someone's having a seizure. But they're like, it was a really cool idea.
Yeah.
That did not catch on. The smell-o-vision, as it seems to have been pitched. But yeah, Baltimore's great. And I'm going to see you up here soon. We're going to have dinner in New York City. But also, we need to hang out in Baltimore sometime.
Yeah. I mean, you're...
We can go see the sea lions.
We can go see the sea. We can the what are those things with the faces? The stingrays.
Oh yeah, those are great too.
And they the way the aquarium's set up, you walk around this like cylinder, and the stingrays like they swim up, and you're literally like this far away, like inches away from their face, and they really have faces. Yeah. And they my favorite part.
It's great there. Okay, so people should go get your book, The Official Dream Dinner Party Handbook. If you could have dinner with anyone living or dead, who do you pick? How do you choose? And how can it all go terribly wrong? By Gary M. Almeter. What's the M stand for?
Michael.
There you go. So pick that up today. And also pick up Gary's other books. They are all on Amazon. You can go and when you get the Dream Dinner Party Handbook, you can click on his author and you can see all the things that he's written, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. And
thanks, Marty.
Everyone needs to go get this book, and they need to rate it, and they need to leave wonderful reviews, and then you have to go listen to the Dream Dinner Party podcast, which I've been a guest on. So people all need to go listen to that. You've got a lot of things to do. What's the food?
A lot of homework.
What's the food that you're serving at your dinner party?
Gosh,
one item. What's the last thing? This is the last thing before the end of the show, Gary. What's the
ice
food?
Cream. Definitely ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah.
What flavor?
And you?
The last thing at my what do I want? Tacos.
Okay.
But I mean, I'd like ice cream a lot too, but I can't say ice cream because you just said ice cream.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking about ice cream, and I'm gonna go have some probably right after the show. I'm gonna have some.
Do the jerk off motion. Do the jerk off motion when you order.
I'm not doing it. No, Gary. Oh God.
Sorry.
We're gonna have to
over the line?
We're gonna have to have rules when we're talking.
Can you edit that out? Yeah.
No, I don't edit anything out. It's all staying in. All right, Gary. People can follow you on the internet at GMA88 on Twitter, and they can find you on. Do you have a website?
Yeah, it hasn't been updated in a while, but that's
all right. Don't go to Gary's website. You can go to humorousbooks.com, and we'll have links to all of Gary's stuff there. And thank you for talking with me today on Talkward, Gary. This has been wonderful.
It has been a lot of fun, Marty. Thank you very much, and thanks for shepherding the book.
Hey, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun, and now we have to just get people to buy it, which is, that's the easy part. It's not the easy part. All right. Hey, everyone, thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Subscribe and follow us on Talkward Podcast. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Talkward. Please subscribe, follow us, and visit weeklyhumorist.com.